Are you tired, stressed, burned out, and knowing you need a vacation but feel like you can't afford one? I'm going to give you 3 passive and 2 additional ways to be able to save money for a vacation coming right up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is E and this is Turtle Wandering. We're going to talk a little bit about travel in the next couple episodes and the intersectionality of being able to travel. So whether we're talking about income or other factors of traveling when you are maybe like plus sized, a single traveler, which I am, being a little bit older, which again I am, just those little things that kind of come up that sometimes make travel a little bit more of a challenge or having to view it from a different way. The first thing I want to talk about though is the idea of being able to save up for a vacation. Oftentimes we are living paycheck to paycheck and it's not really easy to be able to save money. I've been fortunate enough since I was 29 years old to be able to visit 49 out of the 50 states here in the USA. And I've also been to Mexico and Canada so far. I haven't done a lot of international traveling beyond those 2 places, but I've been able to see and experience a lot of different things. And a lot of that I have done very much on a budget. Recognizing that budget is relative, and as we get into our second episode, which is going to be like how to budget, we'll talk more about the idea of a budget being relative. But in this episode, it's the how do we save money. First and foremost, saving money, if you can do it in a passive way, oftentimes is one of the best ways to go, because a lot of us work paycheck to paycheck, and so the ability to just like take massive gobs of money and be like, oh, I'm just going to go and spend this, isn't really there anymore. Now, that being said, I want to be fully transparent. I do have a decent paying job now. I didn't when I first started traveling over 22 years ago, but I do now. I also have the pleasure of having paid time off, and that makes a huge difference because I'm not taking a financial hit if I decide to take some time off. So I want to be kind of upfront about those things, but nonetheless, these suggestions that I have should work for just about everybody, with some variations and some flexibility involved in that. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is the idea of what are known as Roundup savings accounts. Roundup savings accounts are the ones where they round up from your debit card directly into a savings account. So you set this up, and if you spend 75 cents on something and it rounds it up to $1 and it deposits that into one of those savings accounts. This really helps, and it adds up a lot faster than you think, because oftentimes we use our debit cards so reflexively that we don't really think about what we're spending them on. And a lot of folks, when they're doing a budget, what they realize is that, like, because we're using plastic so much now, we don't really realize how much we're spending. So in that respect, it's taking the fact that we don't pay attention and using it to our advantage to be able to save money towards eventually being able to take a trip. So this again is a really, really nice way to do this because you're not paying attention. The other nice thing about this is that you can also add in additional money to that if you choose. So for instance, I set my account up initially when I created it, probably 10, 15 years ago now, to deposit an extra $10 a month in the account, which again doesn't sound like a lot. Over the course of the year though, that is an additional $120 that I have in that account that I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have put in that deposit. And so it's a nice way to kind of just pull that money out. So even if you were just depositing $5 out of every month or out of every paycheck, you're just going to add just a little tiny bit, and that $60, $100, and $120, that could be like your food for a trip, that could be some of your transportation costs, it could be a couple of souvenirs. Again, if you're talking about budget travel, that small dollar amount is really, really going to make a huge difference for you. The second passive way is having money automatically taken from your paycheck and putting it into a savings account. So provided that you have the ability to have a checking account and a savings account, what you do is you automatically say when money is deposited, it doesn't all go 100% into your checking account, which is the norm, but you automatically pick a dollar amount and you say, I want this 10, $5, 15, 25 put into savings. Oftentimes when you're setting up direct deposit, they don't tell you that you can break it up. Your company won't, but you can. So you have to be willing to ask the question of whoever is handling payroll in whatever company that you work for. Do I have the ability to be able to do this? And if so, then that's what you want to appeal. If you're somebody who is having a trouble maybe having a traditional savings account or a traditional bank account, check out some of the internet banks, because oftentimes the standards that are traditional brick and mortar banks aren't quite as high, and you're able to move your money into some of those, at least for savings, in a way that you may not be able to do that otherwise without having the issue of things like credit, if you happen to have any credit issues. I know oftentimes that's one of the big factors that plays into people not being able to have multiple bank accounts. So all right, now the third and final way in order to passively save money is one straight out of childhood, and that is the piggy bank. Yes, the good old-fashioned piggy bank. You know, a lot of us keep some sort of a change jar or whatever, and we don't really think about how that's going to help us. But actually having a piggy bank or some bank like it is a really great way to be able to save money for vacation. So in my case, I have several. I have this guy that I think I got free at an event somewhere. I have this one who looks like R2-D2, and he has, I think, dimes and nickels in him. So I divide them out, believe it or not, actually by the coin amount. I have this one, and this is actually the one that started me on saving. And so this one, its name is actually Hawaii. So hello everyone, this is Hawaii. And this was given to me by a really good friend, Dina, and her fiance, Scott. Unfortunately, Dina passed away about 6 years ago. But for my birthday the one year, as a matter of fact, for my 40th birthday, she and her fiance knew that my goal for my 50th birthday was to go to Hawaii. And so they gave me that piggy bank, which is why I named it then Hawaii. And I kept just putting money in it, with the idea being that when that trip would come, I would be able to use that as some of my spending money. And, you know, it was kind of really special, especially since she's not here with us anymore, to be able to have those memories and kind of take her with me during the course while being able to do something that was beneficial, which was saving money. And then I do have one other one, which I kind of get a kick out of, and this is Wonder Pig. And Wonder Pig is what I'm doing to save up for eventually going to Australia. Now, I have no idea when I'm going to go to Australia and New Zealand. I just know it is going to be a trip of a lifetime. And I definitely want to go for an extended period of time. So I'm going to need to save up a lot of money. I mean, that's like way, way off in the future. But it's the idea that I just kind of put quarters in it periodically, because we all get loose change if we use cash at all anymore. And again, it's one of those things where saving coins adds up and we don't really think about it, and then all of a sudden it's like you dump out the change and you realize like, oh hey, this actually added up to something, even pennies. And then what I'll do usually with the coins is I use that as like my spending cash. So that's usually like my souvenir money. And so that's one less thing that I have to think about when I'm on a trip, especially one that I'm going to be gathering souvenirs. Now, there are certain types of vacations where you're not really worried about souvenirs, like if you're just going to go camping for a week or something. But oftentimes I tend to go to places where I'm going to want to pick up a few things. I do collect shot glasses, so I always factor that in, along with the fact that because I love coffee so much, I love going to local roasters and usually bringing home a couple bags from whatever roasters that I happen to visit. So those are things that will end up costing me, along with usually like, you know, like a t-shirt or something else. But the point being is it gives me some cash that I don't have to worry about, oh, can I afford this? I've got that money already there. And because it's cash, it makes me think a little bit harder as to whether or not I really want to spend that or not, because I'm actually watching my cash dwindle down. But looking at those three things, so those Roundup savings accounts, putting money into your savings automatically, and then the piggy banks, those are my three best ways to passively save money where you don't have to think about it. Now that we've talked about the three passive ways, I'd like to bring up two other ways that I know have worked for me for saving money. Again, recognizing that not everybody has the time or ability to do these, but just kind of sharing some ideas based on experiences that have worked so far for me. The first one is using or putting aside part of my income tax refund. Now, again, depending on how you personally do your taxes, you may not get a refund because maybe you're looking to get the maximum amount out of your paycheck every week, so you haven't filed for, you've kind of taken out what you need and you're kind of coming out even for the year. The government always ends up owing me some money, and I do that a little bit by design. The fact that financially may not work, or some financial advisors would say that's a bad idea, again, that's neither here nor there. I'm just talking about what I do and what works for me. So when I get an income tax refund, whatever the dollar amount is, I divide that into thirds. And so a third goes towards paying some sort of a bill that I may have. A third goes to taking care of something that I either need or want. And then the last third goes into savings. And so again, I use that lump sum. So even if I'm getting $100, 33, 33, and 33. And so again, it's helping a little bit of the expenses. If there's just a little something that maybe I want to splurge, because we all want to treat ourselves on occasion, and then the third goes into savings. The nice thing about the third method, at least for me, is that it also takes away from the idea that you feel like you're punishing yourself by saving. So I was talking with some folks on social media and asking them some of the challenges they had about saving, and one of them was this idea, especially with paychecks, is that when you get that lump sum, you know that you've worked hard for your money and that you want to treat yourself. And I completely agree with that. You absolutely need to treat yourself. What you want to do is just be careful with how much that you're spending so that you don't deny yourself and you feel like you're resisting it, which is the same logic of why diets don't work. So that you're doing something that's going to give you a little bit of satisfaction. So if you want to get your nails done, go get your nails done. But maybe that paycheck, you don't get your nails done and your hair done and buy a new outfit. You pick one of those things, and then you take a little bit of money and you put it into savings. The last thing, and again, doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but definitely has worked for me, is the side hustle. Now, in my case, I have two. The first one that I've mentioned before is that I do work part-time at a bike shop. Now, it is a seasonal position, so really I start working depending on how busy the shop gets. I usually will start around mid-March. Is usually around the time that Steve, the owner, will give me a call and say, hey, when can you start joining in? And then I will help him out a couple times every month throughout the summer. And then in the fall it tapers off, and then usually I'll work like maybe 2 shifts right around Christmas time. The nice thing about this is it doesn't take up all of my time, so I only usually work every other weekend. So it still gives me every other weekend to do things with my family, hang out with friends, or sometimes just to be. Because with having a full-time job, the idea of then working on the weekend too can be draining. And so I like the option that I give myself of having a little bit of flexibility, but then I also have a little bit of extra cash, and I can, again, put that aside in the bank. It also, because it's a retail position, it also affords me some discounts, which, being that I am a cyclist, that also works out that if I need a new helmet, new gear, heck, even a new bike, although there are no new bikes to buy this year, it's going to help with that as well. So again, it's saving me a little bit of money, but having that extra couple bucks to be able to put in for a vacation, if I'm going to do that in the summer or in the fall or in the winter, really helps out. My other side hustle is that I babysit. And so I have a couple small little people that are like some of my favorites, and I will hang out with them, and I've been doing that for a number of years, so I've got an opportunity to watch them grow up. But again, it's money, it's straight up cash. So their parents give it to me, I put it away, and again, it just immediately goes into the vacation fund. And so I know that if I want to be able to do something, it's like I've got that money. Now, before I wrap up this video, the other thing I want to address is the idea that if you are living, tight and paycheck to paycheck, sometimes it feels silly to save money when you have so many bills to pay. And what I can say is this, is that wellness and self-care are exceptionally important. Travel is an absolutely beautiful thing. And it doesn't mean you have to travel far. It doesn't mean you have to travel extravagantly, but putting aside a little bit of money is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Bottom line is that we only get one life. This life is not a dress rehearsal. And if we don't give ourselves some opportunities to do something else, then all we're doing really is we're living to work instead of working to live. And while it is absolutely tough, and maybe you can't take a vacation every year, but being able to save a little bit of money, even if the goal is that, like, I'm going to save money for 2 years because then I'm going to be able to do X, is a beautiful thing. And maybe that year in between, maybe you do a staycation. A lot of people look down on staycations, but I'll tell you what, I've had some absolutely amazing staycations. And in a future episode, we're going to talk about how to have your best adventures close to home. So don't sleep on that as a possibility. If you're doing that with a long-term idea that you're going to be saving up for like an absolutely like amazing, mind-blowing trip, then do that. For me to go to Hawaii last year for my 50th birthday, I saved up for, not counting the piggy bank part, I saved up for 4 years. All right, so that wraps up today's episode. Hopefully I've given you at least, one tip that you can take away and work towards creating a little bit of a cushion for yourself so that you eventually can be able to go on a vacation. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.